It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley. He has a morning off. I'm Gary McNamara, and I'm here. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Just so you know, I was reading National Review, and they had a story on, all right, if Trump is found guilty, what happens? And as to the general election, well, he's still a candidate. You can be a convicted criminal and still run for president. Now, there's a lot of other things. What if he's in jail? Odds are he won't be. Odds are he'll be able to get an appeal approved and not have to serve any time. You never know, though. It is New York, so you never, ever know. But as to the election, as the polls said, and I think these polls were a couple of weeks ago, 6% of likely Trump supporters say they might be slightly less willing to vote for Trump if he is convicted. So that's where you stand right now. And who knows how that will be, down the road. And really, when everybody looks at this particular case, because when the judge gave the jury instructions and then the jury started deliberating and then the jury came back, that's the weird thing. Over 50 pages. You had an NBC reporter waving it going, 50 pages, and they can't bring it in there with them. So, of course, the jury keeps coming back going, can you tell us what it is on, can you tell us what the jury instructions were on this? But the fact is, the judge, with the final jury instructions, at that point, there was no doubt in anybody's mind who's been covering this, who is being intellectually honest on the legalities of it and the protection of a defendant's rights in a court case. There's no way else to look at this except the judge is corrupt. Judge Merchan is corrupt. He's crooked. He lied to the jury as to the prosecutor multiple times, lied to them. Not even getting to the point of where he just absolutely failed to protect the rights of the defendant in this particular case. And I think that was shocking to a lot of people just because we all thought it's what was going to probably happen, was the most likely outcome. But when it actually happens and you realize that a judge is actually willing to let the public know that I'm crooked and there's not a damn thing that you can do about it, and it concerns election interference, and it concerns lying to a jury, and it's obvious to the legal experts that's what's going on. Except, we'll give the exception to Andrew Weissman, who has a man crush on the judge. He said that on MSNBC. That was some really critical analysis, some good critical analysis from MSNBC. He has a man crush on him, he admitted. That's the kind of stuff you would get from somebody who was the lead prosecutor from Mueller, who knew day one that the dossier was bogus, day one of the Mueller investigation. They knew by that time it was completely bogus, and they had no case against Trump, yet they went on and on trying to get something over and over again. So maybe he views this as revenge. I don't know. These people have completely and totally warped minds. But I want to play this audio cut. This is Doug Burgum from the Governor Burgum talking about it yesterday on Fox News.
I mean, every American should be concerned. Every American should be afraid or scared, because if you can take a business filing records case and magically turn it into 34 felonies, I mean, I asked myself as a business person, I said, why isn't the courts in New York filled with CEOs? There's tens of millions of business records filings that have gone on in the last 7 years in that city. This is the only one where they've taken the CEO of a company and said, oh, we think this might be a felony charge. We're going to bring you in court for five weeks. I mean, there's not enough capacity in the judicial system. That's why these things are misdemeanors with a statute of limitation for 2 years. And here we are 7 years later trying to manufacture something out of this thing. And so, yeah, whatever comes out of this thing, the whole thing has been a travesty of justice. And I think that's what the American people see.
Here is the audio cut. This is the NBC reporter yesterday walking out, and she seems like shocked with the jury instructions. She actually has the 50 pages of jury instructions.
I got it. These are the instructions that the jury has to follow in Donald Trump's hush money trial before they can reach a verdict. 53 pages. This is complicated. This is lengthy stuff. It took the judge over an hour to read it. But guess what? The jury doesn't get this in the room during deliberations. They have to write questions, they can write notes, but they don't get these instructions. In New York, both parties have to agree and the judge has to agree. And in this case, it didn't happen. They don't have this in the room right now.
So everybody knows, like I said, everybody has to agree not to do that or to do that, and the judge just ignored it. Like I said, this is, I have never seen, and again, you wanted to wait to see what the jury instructions were, but I have never in my life, ever in any court case, seen a judge so blatantly crooked, because there's no other word for it. And I'm glad that Jonathan Turley finally said that the other day. He didn't say crooked, but he said, because he said, I've given this judge the benefit of the doubt, and he doesn't deserve it. That he goes, not only have I never seen this, I've never read about anything like this ever happening before. And that's where we are. That's where we are now. Let me see what else we have here. I want to play some audio. This is Trey Gowdy yesterday outside of the courthouse.
And you get to the instruction, which is solely the province of the judge. I mean, I have to disagree with people who say the jury can pick among a menu or a buffet of 3 crimes. There can be any crime. The jury doesn't even have to specify. It could be a daggum crime in North Dakota. If it was done in furtherance of another crime, the jury does not have to specify what that crime is. I mean, that is a gift to the prosecution.
Trey Gowdy yesterday, and I think, let me see if I can find the audio here from, this is the audio here from Andrew McCarthy yesterday, who's been covering this from the very, very beginning. By the way, is not a Trump supporter. I think he's more conservative, but he's not a Trump supporter at all. And here's what he had to say.
Howdy, host of Sunday Night in America, Andy McCarthy, Fox News contributor and former assistant U.S. attorney and Lydia Hu, correspondent for Fox Business. So, Andy, let's start with you. The judge said that the jury has to unanimously believe that Donald Trump committed a crime in order to convict him, but they do not need to unanimously agree on what that crime was. And in what world does that work?
Not in any world I've ever been in, John. What makes a criminal prosecution appropriate in the sense of taking somebody's liberty away, the array of constitutional protections we have. I've always understood them in 20 years of prosecuting cases and then more years than I care to count analyzing them. I've always understood that to mean every crime has a set of essential elements, and what the jury has to be unanimous on is that the government's proved the elements beyond a reasonable doubt. To me, it's an essential element of that case. It's the most essential element of the count that they find this other crime, because the only reason we're here is because Bragg used that other crime to inflate what would otherwise be a misdemeanor into a felony that allowed him to escape the statute of limitations. So the thought that they don't have to be unanimous on that makes no sense to me constitutionally.
Of course it doesn't. As you said, the element, they don't even present, they say there's a crime, but they didn't present the elements of the actual crime. It's it is shocking when you see it. And again, you wanted to wait till the final, and we didn't know if the judge was going to come back and say, look, the prosecution has not made the case. You haven't presented any evidence. It's over. And so everybody was waiting to see if the judge did that, had a directed verdict, and he did not. He let it go to the jury. This is the most crooked judge that I've seen. Most crooked judge I've ever witnessed. And because of the importance of the case, as I said earlier when I heard Kevin O'Leary talk about it, and Eric and I talked about it, I think it was a week ago. I looked at Eric and said, how might this affect the immunity ruling that the Supreme Court's looking at right now? Because if you look at it, most precedent and most people looking at immunity for a president would say, okay, it would be any official act or anything relating to an official act or the job as a president that he has immunity from. But now when you see what the Democrats will do, that the Democrats will make up a crime, a rogue prosecutor and a rogue judge, a crooked judge, will collude to make up a crime to deny the opposition candidate their constitutional rights as a defendant over and over again, from the gag order to not letting the defense even know generally what one of the crimes was and the specifics of it that raises it to a felony until the prosecution had their closing arguments. And in New York, the prosecution makes their closing arguments after the defense, so the defense couldn't rebut anything. When you finally get to that reality and the judge does not make it a directed verdict and lets it go, and then you see what the jury instructions are where the judge lies to the jury, it is a shocking moment in American history. It's something where you say, my God, how does a judge get to that point? And how do you look at any other case that this judge has ever presided over without being suspicious? Because that's the thing that really got to a lot of people. CNN, they're legal experts. CBS, mainstream media looking at it, they all know. They all knew it was a crap case from the beginning. They said it on these networks. They said it. And now that all the other cases have fallen away, it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe the case is more solid. You had James Comey last week saying, oh, the case is a lot more solid than I thought when they first brought it. He's lying. Comey's a filthy liar. Comey corrupted the management of the FBI. You look at it, it's when you see the number of people, the number of liberals that are in the bureaucracy of this country who don't give a damn about the Constitution, it's pretty scary, as we have said. When you see the number of bureaucrats that are pro-Hamas, that are pro-terrorist, when you see you have a president that is pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist, anti-Israel, and the only reason you don't see it fully, the reason he's trying to walk that tightrope, is because he knows the people don't agree with him on it. It gets to be shocking when all of these things happen within just a couple of weeks, and you add everything else onto it. You add on the border and the denial of what's going on there and pretending there's nothing I can do about the border. Oh, it just... And then his underlings, it's secure, it's secure, it's secure. And then you take critical race theory and the bigotry that they have there. Then you take their identity politics and the racism of the identity politics of Democrats today. When you take the radical transgender movement and its misogyny and the threats and the intimidation towards young women, you take all of those together, the forcing the EVs, the spending, the inflation, everything, and you say, just what the hell are they about? And we had someone earlier saying they're trying to get control. Well, in their delusional minds, in an abstract way, they think they can get control by doing it, but the opposite happens. It's complete anarchy. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
A trend of active weather is expected to continue in coming days.
As we see yet another active cycle starting up, we have a significant storm system that is moving in from the northwestern United States. It is starting to interact with residual moisture and some old frontal boundaries that remain kind of draped across the nation's midsection.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says questions remain on where this will occur, other than within the central one-third of the nation.
We do expect anywhere from Montana to Texas, eastward to parts of the Mississippi Valley, could be really under the gun for the potential for severe weather over the next several days.
May 21st was the start of the most recent trend of tornadoes across parts of the country, with 4 days in that stretch recording 12 tornadoes or more. Some were fatal, such as an Iowa tornado last week, producing 5 fatalities, and a weekend tornado in Texas claiming 7 lives. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. And finally, the most critical thinking audio cut of the day yesterday came from MSNBC and former prosecutor Andrew Weissman, who was the lead prosecutor for Mueller in the Mueller report. He knew, by the way, when he took over, when he was the lead prosecutor for the Mueller report, which, remember, came up with nothing on Trump. He knew that the dossier, when they took it, they knew the dossier was bogus. They knew Hillary had created it, which is why they never went down the path to actually find out where Russia collusion came from, because it would have taken them right to where? Hillary Clinton, because she is the one that created the dossier, lied about it, financed it with campaign money that, by the way, was a federal elections crime that they were fined hundreds of thousands of dollars for, and Weissman could never go down there, so he's just another political hack. Here he is on MSNBC. I mean, this is just embarrassing. This is how bad. You want an example of how bad the left is? Here we go.
With, as you've noted, with respect to Judge Marchand, I mean, I am like now, I have like a man crush on him. He is such a great judge that it's hard to see that the jurors wouldn't have the same impression. I mean, you just keep on thinking, if you looked in a dictionary for like judicial temperament, that's what you get.
And that's why Andrew Weissman admires a crooked judge, just like he was part of the bogus Mueller report. So you knew he wanted to get anything on Trump, and they couldn't. So, and they knew at that point, and Eric and I were right on that. We said if that was a legit investigation, they would have gone down the path, because if Trump colluded with the Russians, where would you have gone? You would have gone down the path to look at where the information came from that was so solid that the FISA court said, okay, you can look inside the Trump campaign with the FISA warrant, with the secret warrant. You would have gone down that path to find out where did that information came from, because that information came from the dossier that was created and financed by the Hillary campaign. They never went down there because they're all a bunch of crooks. They're all a bunch of political hacks. They don't give a damn about the law. Andrew Weissman. I have such a man crush on Judge Marchand. Understand the sick mentality of these people.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. He has a morning off. I don't. A couple of other stories we want to get to before we get out of here today. Scottie Scheffler, all the charges were dropped. The number one golfer in the world. And he spoke out yesterday in the wake of the news that prosecutors have dropped the charges against him for assaulting a police officer and insist that he holds no ill will for the officers who arrested him on May 17th. A judge dropped the charges against Scheffler on Wednesday after the Jefferson County Attorney's Office announced that they would not proceed with the case. Once the prosecutors dropped the case, a judge threw the case out and dismissed all the charges against Scheffler. He went on social media to post a message to fans assuring them that the whole incident was an unfortunate misunderstanding. As I stated previously, there was an unfortunate misunderstanding. I hold no ill will towards Officer Gillis. I wish to put the incident behind me and move on and hope that he will do the same. Police officers have a difficult job, and I hold them in high regard. This was a severe miscommunication in a chaotic situation. It was interesting. I saw his attorney yesterday. Yesterday was a day of sticking by. I was trying to get all my lawn work done before it rained again. There was a brief reprieve from rain, and I hadn't cut the lawn in 8 days. So trying to cut the lawn, come back, catch what was going on, trying to re-catch up by going to YouTube where everybody posts their stuff just minutes afterwards and trying to figure out what's going on, in the court case. But I did see his attorney. His attorney was asked a question about, did Scheffler admit guilt to doing something wrong to the police officer, because an audio came out, and he just took off at the reporter. He just was livid. And he said, that's why you don't talk to police. And there are a lot of questions that are never going to get answered here. Because the lawyer implied that what we saw on the tape was the complete incident. That part of the tape that everybody saw where the car pulled up slowly and then the officer went to it, that was the first encounter. And that nothing really happened. And so the story of the police officer, it sounded like Scheffler's attorney didn't agree with. Now, Scheffler, again, in his comments, were much like what his original comments were. But there still are unanswered questions about exactly what happened there, which I'd be interested in knowing. More stories here. Lending Tree surveyed 2,000 American adults and found 78% of people now consider fast food a luxury. I told the story the other day because I had to bring in, I've got my 21-year-old vehicle. I've got a newer vehicle, but I keep the old one. 21 years old, just about a month ago. 21 and 1 month year old. And I kept it around when I bought my new car back in 2017. Yeah. Wow. I call it my new car. Wow. It still has new car smell. I use the old car to throw all the crap in and, do all the Home Depot stuff. That goes in the old truck. It's still in the shop. Been in there for like a week now. Now, I did bring it in early because I was going away for the weekend, and they weren't sure when the part was going to be in. So it's not that they can't. I know exactly what it is and what the cost is, so it should be done, and I should have it any day now when the part comes in. But when I always said this, when I will know that I have a luxurious life and that I'm rich, you know what my standard is? A lot of people's standards are different. You know, when I can buy a yacht, when I can have a 5,000 square foot home. My definition of rich, and it still is today, that I can do all the preventative maintenance on a vehicle, not only just get it repaired when I need to, but all the preventative maintenance. For example, when the service guy comes up and says, well, you're going to need this probably in the next month or two. We won't see you for 4 months, so if you want to put it in, get it done. Do it now. When I was young, I could never do that. And you're always driving the car going, oh, please don't go. That to me is luxury. I have the best life. I am rich. Now, the guy who called Eric and I billionaires a couple of years ago, he was slightly exaggerating. All right? Now, Eric's right. I think Eric's right under, I think he's right at $999 million is Eric's net worth. I hope that gets back to him. Were you saying my net worth was $999 million? I did see one time, you know, they do the net worth. Somebody had me at, I think, at like $160 million. Like, yeah, I'm right behind Dave Grohl, you know, in Nirvana, or, you know, of Foo Fighters. I think when I saw it at that time, he was like worth $200 million or something. And I remember seeing that. I went, I don't believe that's right, but keep it up there anyway. It might help me find a chick. That was not true. But that's luxury. Unfortunately, because I'm a type 2 diabetic, I don't remember the last time I've been to a fast food restaurant. It had to be when I was in a hurry and had to just get... Oh, no, I know when it was. When my brother was in town last time, and we were taking a ride somewhere, and we went to... Now, is Chick-fil-A considered fast food? I consider it fast food, right? Chick-fil-A? All right. We went to Chick-fil-A, and that was a rarity. And I'm like, oh, boy, I'm eating the bun, carbs, and I had a couple of fries, carbs. But I didn't view that as a luxury. But right now, 78% consider fast food a luxury. Wow. And there's only one reason. Lending Tree did this because it's more expensive. And they're struggling financially. Of those making less than $30,000 a year, 71% see fast food as a luxury, as do 58% of parents with young kids, 58% of those in Generation Z, and 53% of women. Normally, I'm not one for fast food or eating out, but the wife and I are on a month-long camping trip. One of the great benefits of camping is not having to eat out. We have a galley kitchen that allows us to eat the same on the road as at home. And then they go on and talking about just, these are people they just interviewed and what they thought. So now is that okay? Is fast food okay for, I remember the Seinfeld. Remember when he brought the one woman who he really didn't like, but he was trying to get unemployment from the woman's mother? And let's put it this way. They made the character not extremely attractive. Okay, am I politically correct by saying that? I know I said chick before. I was kidding. I don't refer to women as chicks, just so you know. Only for sarcastic only in sarcasm. But her character was not particularly attractive, and she's in the car afterwards, and she wants to kiss George or whatever. And she said, well, thanks a lot for the date. I really appreciate the Big Mac. But there's really nothing. Look, we joke about everything, but there's nothing funny about that. Inflation is horrible right now. And the Democrats, they just don't take it seriously. And the president doesn't care. And that is a little bit infuriating because it's not funny. You know, I think I saw Let me see if I can find it here before we get out of here. It was Senator John Kennedy. Well, I won't because there's a few more stories I want to get to. I'll play it tomorrow to end the week. One of the audio cuts will play to end the week. But John Kennedy was talking about inflation. He said, look, most people really don't pay a lot of attention to what's going on, the minutia of all these things in Washington. He said, but they expect that we don't do things that create it where it makes it so much more expensive for them. And he said the average American's out there trying to raise a family, trying to put their kids, through college, trying to have decent transportation and decent housing, and they're getting killed right now. And they're getting killed because of what the government is doing. It's not a funny situation. And the way that he put it was just great. He said it better than I did there, because I went, whoa, that really hits home the way that he put it, that people are actually suffering, and they don't have to. But the one thing he failed to mention is we're in this situation because the majority of voters voted to have it this way over the last 30 years in this country. They voted this way. They voted. I saw yesterday one of the electricity providers in New York, National Grid, going to raise it 20 to 30% electricity prices. They might not get it, but it's going to be huge. Just one increase. People going crazy, and they said, well, sorry, you got to have the clean energy. And then they dare to put in there, but eventually it will cost you less. They're lying again. So as long as people, it is New York, though, and as you know, whether it's Bragg or Attorney General James, or the situation with energy up there, or the problems with crime on the subway in New York, or the disaster that New York is slowly becoming, or maybe quickly becoming, it's what the majority of voters want. They voted that way. And the other story I wanted to get to real quick is the Fed president out of Minneapolis said he's not ready to consider cutting rates until he sees several months of real progress on inflation. The flood of, when we talked about this about a week ago, the flood of immigrants, he argued, is hindering that process. U.S. borrowing costs are likely to stay put for an extended period of time, which means you're going to have interest on the debt at $1 trillion every year. He's particularly freaked out by the booming demand for housing, which just won't cool off despite the sky-high rates. His immigration bombshell runs directly contrary to claims by the Biden administration and its allies that surging immigration is keeping down inflation by depressing wages. Wow, wow. We're keeping down inflation by keeping down wages by having an open border. And they're promoting that as a good thing. That's how screwed up things are right now. But Kashkari, the Fed chair or the Fed president of Minneapolis, said the dramatic increase in immigration is boosting housing demand. More people working from home and years of underbuilding aren't helping either. It's a perfect storm that's keeping the housing market red hot. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Okay, another day of just sitting by the TV. Even though I've got a ton of stuff to do. Well, you know what it is these days? Sitting by the smartphone. Because you can work wherever you go. That's the beauty of the smartphone. So wherever I am, people look at me. And I've actually, people said, are you always on your phone? Absolutely. Well, you know, that's not good for you. Well, if I had 5 newspapers in front of me here, you'd probably think I was quite intelligent, right? Or if I had 5 books in front of me. Well, hey, on my smartphone, That's where I read the newspapers. If I'm watching the news or a documentary or whatever, you'd be saying, well, I'm glad you're educating yourself. But because I do it on a phone, they view me as some type of teen gamer playing games. I'm doing serious work. Plus all the betting sites I can look at on my phone, too. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens today. I was thinking that it was going to be a quick verdict either way. Like, okay, the judges convinced them, look, this is the law, even though it's not, and so find him guilty. Or they might find him not guilty very quickly. Or it would be a hung jury, which would take a little while. But now it's like they can't seem to get through the 50 pages of the judge's instructions because they're so incredibly insane, let's be honest.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.